He laughed when she asked for nothing in the divorce because men like Vincent Caruso believe silence means weakness and kindness means surrender. But the moment his lawyer read the name beneath her signature, every powerful man in that room stopped breathing. Outside, snow buried Chicago in white. Inside, Claire sat beneath cold glass lights, her wedding ring resting beside a check meant to buy her dignity. Vincent saw the quiet woman he had controlled for 4 years. He never saw the empire standing behind her. This is more than a story about money betrayal and revenge. It is about the danger of underestimating someone who has finally stopped begging to be loved. Stay until the end, because the truth behind Claire's name will change everything you think you know about power, loyalty, and redemption. Like the video and comment where you are watching from. The divorce is only the beginning. Before the Belanti name silenced a room full of powerful men, Claire Bennett had been the woman Vincent Caruso believed he had rescued. 4 years earlier, Chicago was trapped beneath the first heavy snow of December. The storm came without mercy. Wind rushed between the buildings of Wicker Park, driving white powder against storefront windows and forcing strangers into doorways. Cars crawled along Milwaukee Avenue with their lights glowing through the gray afternoon. Somewhere beyond the rooftops, a train groaned over frozen tracks. Inside Bellwether Books and Coffee, the heat was failing. Claire stood behind the counter with both hands wrapped around a paper cup, trying to warm her fingers. She wore a dark green apron over a soft gray sweater, and her brown hair had escaped its loose knot in several places. A small silver chain rested against her throat. There was no pendant, no diamond, nothing that hinted at the family portraits hanging in private homes across 3 countries. The cafe smelled of espresso, damp wool, and old pages. It was the kind of place where people came to disappear for an hour. Claire had chosen it for exactly that reason. A man in a camel coat argued near the register because his drink was taking too long. A student slept with his forehead against a history textbook. 2 elderly women whispered beside a shelf of poetry as though every book around them might be listening. Then the front door opened. Cold air swept through the cafe. Vincent Caruso entered with snow on his shoulders and anger already burning behind his eyes. He was 32 then, broad-shouldered, dark-haired, and too carefully dressed for the neighborhood. His black coat was cut close to his body. His shoes were polished despite the weather. He wore confidence like armor, but Claire noticed the small signs beneath it, the tension in his jaw, the way he checked the street before allowing the door to close. The 2 men waiting beside a black sedan at the curb. One of them carried himself like security. The other looked like the kind of man who did not need to announce what he carried beneath his coat. Vincent took out his phone. "Where is he?" His voice was low, controlled, and dangerous. Claire could not hear the response. "He was supposed to meet me 20 minutes ago. I do not care about the weather. Tell him if I have to call again, he can find another company to disappoint." He ended the call and stepped toward the counter. At that exact moment, the angry man near the register reached across the bar for his cup. Claire turned too quickly. Her elbow struck a fresh espresso. The cup tipped. Coffee splashed across Vincent's sleeve. The cafe went silent. Vincent stared at the dark stain spreading over the expensive fabric. The man who had reached across the counter slipped away without apologizing. Claire grabbed a stack of towels. "You can yell at me," she said, already blotting the coat, "or I can save the jacket. You probably do not have time for both." Vincent looked at her. For 1 second, his expression remained hard. Then something in it broke. He laughed. Not the polished laugh he used at fundraisers. Not the sharp sound he made when someone embarrassed himself during a negotiation. This laugh surprised him. It was warm and low, almost boyish. Claire stopped moving. "There," she said. "You look less dangerous when you do that." His smile faded only slightly. "Do I usually look dangerous? You walked into a bookstore like you were preparing to buy the building or burn it down." Vincent glanced around. Which one would impress you more? Neither. The plumbing barely works. You would regret both decisions. He looked at her name tag. Claire. That is what it says. You always speak to customers like this. Only the ones who arrive with armed men. Vincent's eyes shifted toward the window. The two men beside the sedan remained still. They work for my family. What does your family do? Construction. Claire looked back at the men. They must be very protective of concrete. Vincent laughed again. He removed his coat and handed it to her. If you ruin it, you owe me dinner. If I save it, you owe me dinner. He considered her for a moment. Fair. Claire cleaned the sleeve in the sink behind the counter while Vincent sat near the window. He ordered black coffee and did not touch the sugar. Every few minutes his phone lit with calls he ignored. He watched her move between customers. She did not flirt with him. She did not ask what company he owned. She did not pretend she had never heard the Caruso name when he finally gave it. Most people in Chicago knew something about the Carusos. Some knew the family through construction signs rising above empty lots. Some knew them through restaurants where reservations appeared when no tables were available. Others knew them from older stories told quietly in kitchens after children had gone to bed. Claire knew more than most. The Caruso organization had once controlled labor contracts, trucking routes, and several waterfront unions. Over time, the family had pushed its money into legitimate companies. The current generation preferred tailored suits, boardrooms, and political fundraisers. But old habits survived longer than old men. Vincent Caruso was not the head of the family. He wanted to become something more dangerous. He wanted to become respectable. Respectability could hide far more than fear. When Claire returned his coat, the stain had nearly disappeared. Vincent examined the sleeve. You saved it. You sound disappointed. I was hoping you would owe me dinner. Claire wiped her hands on a towel. You still spilled into my afternoon. That was your coffee. You brought the bad luck through the door. He took out his wallet and placed cash beside the cup. It was far too much. Claire pushed most of it back. He raised an eyebrow. You do not like money, I like earning it. Then let me earn dinner. She should have refused. Samuel Bell had spent the last year warning her about charming men with ambitious eyes. Her grandfather had warned her before Samuel. A Belanti did not enter a room without changing its balance. Men either wanted access to the name or wanted the pride of proving they could control it. Claire had grown tired of never knowing which version of affection stood in front of her. But Vincent did not know. He saw a woman in an old sweater with coffee on her fingers, and he was still looking at her. What night, she asked. His answer came too quickly. Tonight. I work until 8. I will be outside at 8:15. What if I say no before then? I will ask again at 8:16. Claire smiled despite herself. You are very sure of your charm. No, Vincent said, lifting his coffee. I am sure you are curious. He was right. At 8:14, the black sedan waited beneath a street lamp. Vincent stood beside it holding an umbrella. Claire locked the cafe door and looked at the two men in the front seats. I thought we were going to dinner. We are. This looks like a kidnapping. If I were kidnapping you, I would have brought a quieter car. She should have been frightened. Instead, she stepped beneath the umbrella. They ate at a small Italian restaurant in Little Italy, not one of the places owned by his relatives. Vincent chose a table in the corner. He ordered in Italian, then apologized when Claire understood enough to correct his pronunciation. He stared at her. You speak Italian a little? Where did you learn school? What kind of school teaches that accent? Claire lifted her wine glass. The expensive kind. He waited for an explanation. She gave him none. For the first time that evening, Vincent seemed intrigued by something he could not immediately possess. They spoke until the staff began stacking chairs. He told her he was building a development company separate from his uncle's. He wanted towers with his own name on them. He wanted to prove he could create something without relying on family muscle. Claire asked what he would build if money did not matter. Vincent looked toward the fogged window, a skyline nobody could ignore. That sounds lonely. It sounds permanent. Nothing in a skyline is permanent. My buildings will be. She studied him. He spoke about ambition as if it were a vow made beside a grave. There was hunger in him, but it did not yet look cruel. It looked frightened. When the restaurant closed, Vincent drove her home. Claire gave him the address of a modest apartment she kept near the bookstore. She did not take him to the secured townhouse on Astor Street. She did not mention the Belanti driver waiting 2 blocks away. Vincent walked her to the entrance. Snow had softened the city. The street was quiet enough for Claire to hear his breathing. "You are not what I expected," he said. "You met me 8 hours ago. I usually know people faster. That means people usually show you what you want to see. And you do not." Claire looked at him beneath the yellow light. "I have not decided." He leaned closer. Not enough to touch her. Enough to ask. Claire kissed him first. For 3 months, Vincent arrived at the bookstore whenever he could. Sometimes he brought flowers. Sometimes he brought food from his mother. Sometimes he sat silently in the corner while Claire worked answering messages and watching snow melt from the boots of ordinary people. He liked the anonymity of the place. No one approached him with contracts. No one asked for introductions. No one called him Mr. Caruso. Claire called him Vince. He said only his mother was allowed to do that. Claire continued anyway. One Sunday he took her to Bridgeport. The Caruso house stood on a narrow street beneath the shadow of an old church. The bricks were weathered. The iron railing leaned slightly toward the sidewalk. A plastic saint watched from the front window. Vincent parked half a block away. He sat behind the wheel longer than necessary. Claire noticed his hands tighten around the steering wheel. "You do not want to go inside. I come here every week." That was not an answer. He looked at the house. "My mother refuses to move. Maybe she likes it. She likes suffering. Those are not always the same thing." Vincent turned toward her. "You always have something to say. Usually." He smiled, but the tension remained. Rosa Caruso opened the door before they reached the steps. She was small, silver-haired, and dressed entirely in black, despite the bright red apron tied around her waist. She hugged Vincent, then held Claire by the shoulders and examined her face. "So this is the girl from the coffee shop." Vincent closed his eyes. "Ma. What you have spoken about her for 3 months. I thought she was imaginary." Claire smiled. "I wondered the same thing about you." Rosa laughed and pulled her inside. The house was warm with the scent of tomato sauce, garlic, and bread. Family photographs crowded the walls. Vincent appeared in nearly all of them until the age of 6. Then another face disappeared. Anthony Caruso had Vincent's eyes and the same stubborn line in his mouth. In one photograph, he held a little boy on his shoulders at a summer festival. In another, he stood beside Rosa beneath a banner decorated with blue ribbons. Claire paused before the pictures. Vincent noticed. He left. Rosa looked up from the kitchen. "Vincent. He did. He had trouble. He had whiskey." Rosa's mouth tightened. Claire moved away from the wall. Dinner began with laughter and ended with silence. Rosa told stories about Vincent stealing peaches from a market and blaming the neighborhood dog. She described him singing in church because he had been promised ice cream afterward. Vincent laughed at first. Then Rosa mentioned how Anthony used to carry him home whenever he fell asleep during family parties. Vincent set down his fork. He was not a father. Rosa folded her napkin. He had faults. cowardice was not one of them. He disappeared. To keep us safe. Safe from what Rosa looked at Claire. The room became still. Vincent pushed back his chair. "This is why I do not come here." "You come here to eat," Rosa said. "You do not come here to remember." Outside, Vincent walked quickly toward the car. Claire followed. Snow crunched beneath their shoes. He unlocked the doors but did not get inside. "My father chose another life," he said. "My mother has spent 25 years inventing excuses." Claire touched his arm. "You were a child. I was poor." The words came out with more pain than anger. He looked back at the house. "I watched my mother count coins before buying groceries. I wore my cousin's clothes. Men came to the door asking for money we did not have. People in that neighborhood knew exactly how weak we were." His voice hardened. "I will never live like that again." Claire saw the boy in the photographs, the one smiling from his father's shoulders, the one who had learned too early that poverty did not simply empty a wallet. It entered the bones. It taught shame to speak in a familiar voice. "You do not have to," she said. Vincent looked at her. "You do not understand." Claire could have told him then. She could have told him that the Belanti family owned enough property to redraw parts of the city, that her grandfather had once settled a dock war with a single phone call, that men who frightened city officials lowered their eyes when Samuel Bell entered a room. She could have told him she understood power because she had spent her life surrounded by it. Instead, she said, "Maybe I understand more than you think." Vincent kissed her beside the car. He held her as if she were the only quiet place left in Chicago. That night, the Belanti sedan collected Claire from her apartment. It took her north to Astor Street, where the townhouse stood behind stone walls and iron gates. Inside the rooms were dim and perfectly ordered. Security cameras watched every entrance. 2 guards nodded as she passed. Samuel Bell waited in the library. He was 70 years old, tall, narrow, and silver-haired. He had served Claire's grandfather before Claire was born. He never raised his voice. He had never needed to. On the table lay a file bearing Vincent's name. Claire removed her coat. "You investigated him. I investigate everyone who enters your life. You said I could live as Claire Bennett. You can. You cannot become careless." Samuel opened the file. "Vincent Caruso is ambitious. His uncles control several unions. His development company is highly leveraged. He owes favors to men who do not forgive debt. He is trying to separate himself from them. Men often say that while using the family car." Claire sat opposite him. "He does not know who I am. That is what concerns me." Why Samuel's expression softened, but only slightly. Because men who need power are rarely grateful when they discover you have more of it. Claire looked toward the fire. "He is not asking me for anything. Not yet. You think everyone wants the Belanti name? No. Some men want to love it. Some want to own it. Some want to punish it for making them feel small. He sees me." Samuel closed the file. "He sees Claire Bennett. You have not shown him Elena Belanti." Claire stood. "Maybe Claire is the truest part of me." Samuel did not argue. That made the warning heavier. A year after the storm, Vincent proposed in the empty shell of his first major building. The tower had no walls yet. Wind moved through the unfinished floors, carrying the sound of traffic from far below. Chicago spread around them in silver and gold. Vincent stood near the edge with the city behind him. He held a simple diamond ring. "I do not have the skyline yet," he said, "but I want you beside me when I do." Claire looked at the open beams, the winter sky, and the man who had once laughed because she spilled coffee on him. Yes, the Caruso family celebrated the engagement at a private restaurant in River North. Martin Shaw presented the prenuptial agreement 2 weeks later. He sat across from Claire in a conference room and explained every clause as if speaking to someone who had never signed anything more serious than a rental contract. Vincent appeared uncomfortable. "It is only business," he said. "My family insists." Claire turned the pages. Her private attorney had already reviewed the structure. All Belanti assets remained inside trusts created before the marriage. They were not personal property available to Vincent. The agreement protected separate holdings on both sides. Martin looked surprised when Claire signed without negotiation. "You understand that you would have no claim against Mr. Caruso's company?" "Yes. And no right to property acquired from his separate business assets, I understand." Vincent reached for her hand. "You will never need to worry about money." Claire looked at him. "I was not worried." He mistook the answer for trust. Their first year of marriage was gentle. Vincent cooked on Sunday nights. Claire read beside him while he reviewed plans. He came home late but always found her before sleeping. Some nights he rested his head in her lap and spoke about buildings that existed only in his imagination. Then Caruso development began to grow. With growth came invitations, private clubs, political dinners, men who measured a person by the table where they were seated. Vincent bought Claire dresses without asking what she liked. He corrected her stories in public. He began introducing her as the woman who had brought peace into his life, though he rarely allowed her to speak long enough to show anyone who she was. At a dinner with investors, Claire noticed a problem in a shipping contract. "The insurance provision does not cover a port closure," she said quietly. Vincent smiled across the table. Claire worked in a bookstore. The men laughed. She continued. "If the river freezes or the terminal shuts down, the company carries the loss." One investor reread the contract. She was right. Vincent thanked the man who confirmed it. He did not thank her. In the car afterward, Claire asked why. "Why what? Why did you embarrass me? I protected you. From being correct, from looking like you were trying too hard." She turned toward the window. Chicago moved past in blurred lights. Vincent placed a hand on her knee. "You do not need to prove yourself in those rooms. You are my wife." The words sounded loving. The hand felt like a lock. Months later, Rosa visited the penthouse during a dinner party. Claire wore a blue dress Vincent had chosen. She sat beside him while businessmen discussed labor costs near the lakefront. When Claire offered an idea about using local suppliers, Vincent interrupted. "Let us leave construction to people who understand it." Rosa watched Claire fall silent. After the guests left, she followed Vincent into the kitchen. A man who makes his wife smaller does not become larger. Vincent poured himself a drink. "You came here to criticize me. I came here to see my son." "You are standing in his home." "No," Rosa said. "I am standing in the home of the man he performs." Vincent told his driver to take her back to Bridgeport. He did not visit for almost a year. Claire did. She brought groceries, repaired the loose railing, and listened when Rosa spoke about Anthony. She never told Vincent because he had turned his mother into another part of himself he did not want examined. By the third winter of their marriage, Claire had stopped asking why Vincent returned home after midnight. She had stopped mentioning unfamiliar perfume. She had stopped reminding him that he once wanted to build something permanent rather than something impressive. One night she woke to voices beyond the bedroom. The balcony door was partly open. Wind moved through the curtains. Vincent stood outside in shirt sleeves, one hand gripping the railing, the other holding his phone. Claire remained behind the glass. Lucas Reed's voice carried faintly through the speaker. "We are $8 million short. Payroll clears Friday. The river project is bleeding cash." Vincent looked down at the frozen city. "Move money from the charity account. That account is restricted." "Then unrestrict it." "Vince, if auditors look at this," I said, "find the money." Silence followed. Vincent lowered his voice. "I do not care where it comes from. I will not lose this company." Claire stood barefoot in the dark. She watched the man she loved stare across a skyline he believed belonged to him. Then she returned to the bedroom, closed the door, and picked up a secure phone Vincent had never seen. Samuel answered on the second ring. Claire looked through the glass at her husband. "Tell the board I want to discuss a private loan." Samuel did not ask why Claire was calling after midnight. He had spent most of his life serving people who rarely called at reasonable hours. "I will wake the board," he said. "No." Claire stood near the bedroom window, watching Vincent through the glass. Snow gathered along the balcony railing. He was still on the phone with Lucas Reed, speaking in a voice meant to sound calm while panic tightened every word. "Call only the finance committee," Claire said. "I want this contained." Samuel was silent for a moment. "You want to help him. I want to protect the employees. That was not my question." Claire closed her eyes. Vincent had come home smelling of whiskey and winter. He had kissed her forehead without noticing she was awake. 10 minutes later, he was ordering another man to take money from an account meant for children. She wanted to believe fear had made him reckless. Fear could pass. Character remained. "I want to give him one clean chance," she said. Samuel exhaled slowly. "Then we will structure it as debt. Not a gift. No personal guarantee from you. No Belanti name visible anywhere in the transaction. He can never know. He will know the lender. Phoenix Capital." The name belonged to an old private company inside the Belanti network. It had existed for decades, mostly dormant, protected beneath layers of legal ownership. Few people knew where its money came from. Fewer knew why Claire's grandfather had insisted it never be dissolved. Samuel understood immediately. "The Phoenix board will demand control rights. Give them audit rights. They will demand collateral. Take everything he offers. Claire, if he is honest, the collateral will never matter." Samuel's voice softened. "And if he is not?" Claire looked at Vincent again. He had turned away from the city. For one brief second, his reflection appeared in the glass between them. "If he is not," she said, "I need to know before I spend the rest of my life defending him." The finance committee met before sunrise. Claire joined by secure video from the library downstairs. Vincent slept 3 floors above her, unaware that his wife was deciding whether his company would survive the week. Samuel sat at the head of a long table at Iron Harbor Holdings. Around him were 5 people who had managed family money through strikes, recessions, criminal investigations, and political wars. None of them trusted Vincent Caruso. Margaret Hale, the committee chair, opened a folder. "Caruso Development is not 8 million short," she said. "It is closer to 11. Claire kept her expression still. "Why cost overruns? Delayed permits? Private debt? There are personal withdrawals disguised as consulting fees. Can the company be saved?" "Yes." The answer came from Daniel Cross, head of restructuring. "But not without discipline. He has too many projects and no cash reserve. He must sell 2 properties, reduce executive spending, and submit to quarterly audits." Claire looked down at the figures. Vincent had told her the company was expanding. He had not told her it was bleeding. What amount would stabilize payroll and complete the river project? 12 million. Prepare the loan. Margaret leaned back. "You are asking this committee to place trust money behind a man who has not told you the truth. I am asking the committee to protect hundreds of employees while we determine whether the company can be repaired." And your husband Claire lifted her eyes. "He receives the same protection as every other shareholder. No more." Margaret studied her for a long moment. "Will you tell him the money came from you? No. Then he will believe he saved himself." Claire thought of Vincent standing beside the unfinished tower when he proposed. He had looked at the skyline as if one day it might answer every insult he had ever carried. "Maybe that is what he needs to believe," she said. By noon, Phoenix Capital Partners had contacted Lucas Reed. The offer reached Vincent before dinner. He came home energized, his coat open, snow melting in his hair. Claire was in the kitchen chopping parsley. He crossed the room and lifted her from the floor. She almost dropped the knife. "What happened? I found the money." He kissed her hard. For a second, she let herself believe his relief was joy. Then he placed her down and poured 2 glasses of wine. "A private lender," he said. "Phoenix Capital. 12 million. Claire wiped her hands. "What do they want standard protections?" "Which protections?" Vincent smiled. "You are worried about me. I'm asking about the contract, collateral, reporting, some audit language. What collateral?" "The company shares, the penthouse, the lake house, a few personal holdings." Claire stared at him. "You are pledging everything. I am investing in myself. You already invested everything. That is what people say when they have never built anything." The words landed between them. Vincent noticed her expression and reached for her hand. "I did not mean it that way." "How did you mean it?" He kissed her knuckles. "I mean, this is the moment that changes our lives." Claire looked at the untouched wine. "Did you read every condition Martin did? Did you?" Vincent laughed softly. "Claire, lenders write contracts to frighten people who need them. I know how this works." She wanted to tell him that she knew exactly how it worked. She wanted to tell him she had argued against a higher interest rate that morning, that she had protected his employees, that she had insisted the committee give him enough time to restructure. Instead, she asked, "What happens if they audit you? They will find a company about to make them rich." He raised his glass to the skyline. Claire touched her glass to his. The sound was small and clear. The money arrived 3 days later. Payroll cleared. The river project resumed. Suppliers who had threatened lawsuits accepted new payment schedules. Workers returned to construction sites. Investors stopped calling. Vincent moved through the crisis like a man who believed destiny had finally recognized him. He sold none of the properties the restructuring plan recommended. He did not reduce executive spending. He ordered a new company car. Within 6 months, Caruso Development appeared stronger than ever. A business magazine placed Vincent on its cover beneath the words, "The Man Rebuilding Chicago." He framed the issue and hung it behind his desk. During the interview, the reporter asked how he had survived the company's early financial pressure. Vincent leaned back and smiled. "No one ever gave me anything." Claire watched the interview from the penthouse. The magazine rested on the table beside her. She turned it face down. When Vincent came home, he opened champagne. "They want me to speak at the developers conference. That is good. They are calling me self-made." Claire looked at him. "Do you believe that?" He poured her a glass. "I believe I made the right decisions when everyone else was afraid. Phoenix was not afraid. Phoenix needed me as much as I needed them." Claire took the glass but did not drink. "The loan agreement requires quarterly reports. Lucas handles them. And the audits." Vincent waved one hand. "Paperwork. You should read the agreement again." He smiled as if she were being sweet. Then he touched her cheek. "This is what I love about you. You worry about storms after the sky has already cleared." He kissed her and walked toward the bedroom. Claire remained beside the windows. Outside, cranes moved above the river like dark metal birds. The sky had not cleared. Vincent had simply stopped looking at it. Success changed the temperature of their marriage. He was no longer openly cruel every day. Cruelty was too much effort. Instead, he became dismissive. He stopped asking Claire what she thought. He spoke over her at dinners. He bought her clothes in colors he preferred. He scheduled her appearances beside him and criticized her when she seemed uncomfortable. "You need to smile more," he said before a charity event. "I am smiling. You look like someone is forcing you to be here. Someone is." He stared at her reflection in the mirror. "You used to enjoy these things. I used to enjoy being with you." The silence that followed was sharp. Vincent adjusted his cuff. "Do not start tonight." Claire watched him leave the room. She had once believed silence could protect what remained between them. Now silence only gave his worst instincts more space. Savannah Price entered their lives during a celebration at the Meridian Club. The club occupied the upper floors of a stone building near the lake. Its windows overlooked Chicago, but the members rarely looked outside. They preferred watching one another. Savannah wore a red dress and a smile that made men feel chosen. She met Vincent near the bar while Claire spoke with a hospital director across the room. Savannah knew exactly who he was. She also knew who he wanted to become. "I read your interview," she said. Vincent looked at her over his glass. "Did you agree with it? I thought the writer made you sound too careful." He smiled. "Careful. You are building half the city. Men like you are not careful." "What are men like me?" Savannah moved closer. "Hungry." Claire saw them from across the room. She saw the way Savannah touched Vincent's sleeve. She saw the way Vincent straightened beneath the attention. When he returned to Claire, he did not mention the woman in red. Claire did not ask. 2 weeks later, a hotel charge appeared on a company card, then another. Vincent began turning his phone face down at dinner. He changed the code. He returned home after midnight with perfume on his collar. The scent was expensive and sweet. Claire washed the shirt herself. She stood in the laundry room with the fabric between her hands and remembered the first winter at the bookstore. Coffee on his sleeve, snow in his hair, a laugh that had seemed honest. She pressed the shirt into the water until the perfume disappeared. Vincent brought Savannah to company events but introduced her as a consultant. She claimed her father had made money in Texas oil. She spoke of ranches, private aircraft, and childhood summers in Europe. Claire recognized the performance. People born around serious wealth rarely described it so loudly. One afternoon, Samuel placed a file on Claire's desk. "You asked us to verify her background." Claire opened it. Savannah's father lived outside Gary, Indiana. He sold essential oils through a network marketing company and owed more on his house than it was worth. Savannah had no consulting experience. She had debts, unpaid rent, and a pattern of relationships with married businessmen. Claire closed the file. "Does Vincent know no?" "Do not tell him." Samuel frowned. "You are protecting him again." "No. I am allowing him to choose with complete freedom. That sounds like a punishment." Claire looked toward the windows of Iron Harbor Holdings. "It is only a punishment if the truth matters to him." The charity gala took place in early autumn. Claire had proposed the event after visiting a children's trauma center on the South Side. The hospital needed a new recovery wing. Its current rooms were crowded, outdated, and filled with families waiting for space. Vincent liked the idea because the mayor had agreed to attend. The gala filled a downtown ballroom with politicians, developers, athletes, and television cameras. Claire stood on stage beside a 12-year-old girl named Sophie who had spent months learning to walk again after a car accident. Sophie held Claire's hand while speaking into the microphone. "I want other kids to have a room where they can be scared without being alone." The ballroom went quiet. By midnight, the event had raised more than $2 million. Vincent lifted Claire in his arms after the final guests left. "We did it." For a moment, she believed him. 3 months later, the hospital director called. Claire was sitting in Rose's kitchen repairing a loose button on Rose's coat. The director sounded embarrassed. "I thought there might be a delay." "What delay?" "The transfer." Claire placed the needle on the table. "What transfer? The gala funds. Our board was told the payment would arrive within 30 days. Claire looked toward Rosa, who was washing cups at the sink. "How much did you receive?" There was a pause. "Nothing." Claire left Bridgeport and drove directly to Iron Harbor. Samuel was waiting when she arrived. She gave him the name of the foundation account, Within an hour, the first records appeared. The money had not remained in the charity fund. It had moved through 3 consulting companies controlled by Lucas Reed. From there, it had been divided. Some went to a private bookmaker. Some went to a casino account in Atlantic City. Some went to companies connected to building inspectors and permit officials. Nearly $400,000 had paid personal expenses tied directly to Vincent. Claire sat before the screen without moving. Samuel stood behind her. "I am sorry." She enlarged one transfer. The authorization carried Vincent's code. She checked another. The same code appeared. "He knew," she said. Samuel did not answer. Claire thought of Sophie standing on the stage, a child asking for a room where she could be afraid without being alone. Vincent had hurt her. Then he had taken the money. "Activate the Phoenix audit rights," Claire said. Samuel pulled out a chair. "You should speak to your attorney first. Activate them." The audit began quietly. Phoenix Capital sent a formal notice requesting records under the loan agreement. Lucas delayed. Vincent's office claimed files had been misplaced during a server migration. That excuse gave Phoenix authority to expand the review. Forensic accountants entered the company under the pretense of preparing a refinancing package. They found false invoices within days. Then bribes. Then personal withdrawals. Then shell companies tied to Savannah's apartment, Vincent's gambling debts, and luxury purchases. One document carried Claire's forged signature. It authorized the transfer of a charitable reserve. She held the page beneath the white light of Samuel's office. Vincent had written her name without hesitation. The forgery hurt more than the affair. The affair meant he no longer desired the life they had built. The signature meant he believed her identity belonged to him. Claire met with her attorney the next morning. Rebecca Sloan was direct, precise, and unimpressed by family names. "You cannot conceal this," Rebecca said. "I know. If federal funds touched any connected project, investigators may become involved." "I understand. You also need to separate yourself from every disputed asset immediately." Claire looked at the files stacked between them. "What happens to the employees?" "Phoenix can request a controlled receivership. Payroll can continue. Projects with clean financing may survive." "And Vincent?" "That depends on whether he cooperates." Claire looked toward the door. "He will not. You sound certain." "I know what fear makes him do." Rebecca closed the file. "Then decide what you are offering him." Claire did. She authorized 2 legal strategies. The first allowed Vincent to admit the violations, resign, cooperate with investigators, and preserve enough company value to protect workers and investors. The second pursued every contractual remedy available to Phoenix Capital. The difference would depend on what Vincent did when confronted. Claire still wanted to believe he could choose honesty. The final proof arrived on a Thursday night. Vincent was in the shower, his phone lit on the dresser. Claire had not touched it in months. The message appeared without requiring a code. Savannah had sent a photograph from a hotel bed. Below it were 6 words. "Is the little wife finally gone?" Claire stared at the screen. Water continued running behind the bathroom door. Vincent began humming. Claire placed the phone exactly where it had been. She did not confront him. She went downstairs, opened the safe hidden behind the library shelves, and removed copies of the audit records. Then she drove to Bridgeport. Rosa opened the door wearing slippers and an old robe. One look at Claire's face was enough. She stepped aside. They sat at the kitchen table without turning on the overhead light. Rosa poured tea. Claire held the cup but could not drink. "I thought if I loved him without the name, he would know the difference." Rosa folded her hands. "Between what?" "Between being loved and being obeyed." Rosa looked toward the family photographs. "He was not born cruel." "I know. That does not mean you must live beneath what he became." Claire pressed her lips together. I loved him before he became the man he pretends to be. Rosa shook her head. No, sweetheart. You loved the man he might have chosen to become. Claire looked down at her wedding ring. The diamond caught the dim light. I am filing tomorrow. Rosa reached across the table and covered Claire's hand. She did not ask her to stay. She did not ask her to forgive. By morning, Rebecca had prepared the divorce petition. Claire requested no property, no support, and no claim against Vincent's personal estate. She asked only for the family photographs stored in the lake house attic. Vincent had ordered them removed from the penthouse because they made the Carusos look poor. Rebecca read the request twice. Nothing else. Nothing that belongs to him. That night, Vincent met Savannah in a private apartment above one of his restaurants. He poured champagne and told her the divorce would be simple. She signed a brutal prenup, he said. She came into my life with nothing. Savannah stretched across the bed and smiled. And she leaves with nothing. Vincent raised his glass. Exactly. Across the city, Claire sat alone in Rebecca Sloane's office. The final dissolution papers rested before her. She removed a black fountain pen from her bag. For 4 years, she had signed birthday cards, dinner reservations, and letters to Rosa as Claire Bennett Caruso. This document required the name attached to the trust, the name Vincent had never cared enough to discover. Claire placed the pen against the final page. In smooth, practiced letters, she wrote Elena Claire Belanti. Rebecca pressed the Belanti family seal into the paper. A black tower rose above 3 silver waves. Claire closed the folder. Send the meeting notice to Martin Shaw, she said. Outside, snow began falling over Chicago. By the time the snow reached the windows of Shaw Benton and Cole Vincent Caruso had already decided how the marriage would end. Claire would sign. Martin would witness it. Vincent would leave with every building, every account, every key, and every story that mattered. He arrived 12 minutes late. The receptionist stood as he crossed the marble lobby, though she did not smile. Vincent barely noticed. His attention remained on the message glowing across his phone. Savannah had sent a photograph of a champagne bottle resting in silver ice. The caption read, "Do not make me wait all night." Vincent typed while walking. 20 minutes. She is trying to look brave. He slipped the phone into his coat and entered the conference room. Claire was already seated. Her wool coat hung over the back of her chair. She wore a cream sweater, dark trousers, and the expression of someone waiting for a train rather than the end of a marriage. There were no tears, no trembling hands, no desperate attorney whispering beside her, only the weathered leather folder resting beneath her fingers. Vincent looked toward Martin Shaw. Let us finish this. Martin gestured toward the chair opposite Claire. There are several provisions we should review. The agreement is simple. Mr. Caruso. I believe it would be wise to Martin. Vincent removed his coat and passed it to an assistant without looking at her. My wife wants freedom. I want efficiency. Neither of us needs a lecture. Claire watched him sit. For a moment, the room contained only the muted wind against the glass. Martin opened the settlement file. Mrs. Caruso has declined any claim to the Gold Coast residence, the Lake Geneva property, the company vehicles, the investment accounts, and all shares held in Caruso Development. Vincent leaned back. Good. She has also declined temporary support, permanent support, and any future claim against your personal estate. Even better. Martin looked at Claire. I must ask again for the record. Do you understand the value of what you are surrendering? Claire did not look away from Vincent. I understand exactly what belongs to him. The sentence made Martin pause. Vincent smiled. She understands that she did not build any of it. Claire lowered her eyes to the table. Vincent mistook silence for defeat. He reached inside his jacket and removed a cashier's check. The paper slid across the polished wood until it stopped near Claire's hand. $75,000. The number was large enough to feel generous and small enough to remind her what he thought she was worth. Vincent folded his hands. "I did not have to offer this." Claire looked at the check. "No. I know you will need time to adjust. Rent insurance, whatever ordinary people pay for when no one else handles it." Martin shifted in his chair. "Vincent." Vincent ignored him. "You can find a small place, maybe return to school. You always talked about finishing that degree." Claire touched the corner of the check. For a second, Vincent believed she would take it. Instead, she pushed it back. "I do not want your money." He stared at her. "You want more. I want nothing." Vincent gave a quiet laugh. Claire removed her wedding ring. The diamond caught the white light above the table. She placed it on the check. Vincent looked at the ring, then at her face. "You are being dramatic. No. You think walking away from money makes you noble? I think taking money that does not belong to me would make me something else." The words were calm. That calmness irritated him more than anger would have. Vincent laughed again, louder this time. The sound filled the room and struck the glass walls. He turned toward Martin. "Put it in the final order. She leaves with the coat she walked in wearing." Martin did not laugh. Claire opened the leather folder. "I brought the completed agreement." Vincent looked at the worn edges. "You prepared legal papers. My attorney prepared them. I do not see an attorney. She did not need to attend." Vincent glanced toward Martin as if Claire had made a joke. "Did you print those at the bookstore?" Claire slid the document across the table. "Read the last page." Martin accepted it reluctantly. He adjusted his glasses and began scanning the first section. Vincent checked his phone. Savannah had sent another message. "Is she crying now?" He smiled and typed, "Not yet. She is pretending she has pride." 5 seconds passed, then 10. Martin stopped turning pages. His right hand remained against the final sheet. Vincent continued typing. "Martin, sign it." The lawyer did not respond. "Martin." Claire remained perfectly still. Martin lifted the document closer to the light. His face lost color. His thumb moved over the seal pressed into the paper. A black tower. 3 silver waves. Vincent noticed the silence at last. "What is wrong with you?" Martin looked at Claire. Not as a client's quiet wife. Not as a woman who had arrived with no attorney and no demands. He looked at her the way men looked at locked doors after hearing something move on the other side. "Mr. Caruso," he said. Vincent frowned. "What? You need to stop talking." The words were barely above a whisper. Vincent stared at him. Martin swallowed. "Please." Claire looked down at her hands. Vincent reached across the table and pulled the agreement away. "This is absurd." He turned to the signature page. His eyes moved over Claire's handwriting, then stopped. "Elena Claire Belanti, sole beneficiary of the Belanti Family Trust, controlling shareholder of Iron Harbor Holdings." Vincent read the name again. The room seemed to narrow around him. "No." Claire lifted her eyes. "That is my legal name. You are Claire Bennett. My mother was born Claire Bennett. I used her name." Vincent looked at Martin. The lawyer could not hold his gaze. "You knew no." Martin's voice sounded dry. "I knew the Belanti Trust. I did not know Mrs. Caruso was the beneficiary." Vincent turned back to Claire. Her sweater looked different now. Not cheap, not modest, controlled. The clothing of someone who had never needed approval from the room. He looked at the seal again. The Belanti name lived beneath Chicago's respectable surface. Iron Harbor Holdings owned freight terminals, private security firms, construction suppliers, shipping contracts, and enough waterfront property to stop entire projects with a refusal. Older men told darker stories. They spoke of Claire's grandfather settling wars before police knew they had begun. of union leaders who changed positions after one private dinner, of criminals who vanished from the docks and were never discussed again. The Belantes no longer called themselves a family organization. They did not need to. Their influence had become infrastructure. Vincent's mouth went dry. How much? Claire tilted her head. How much? What? How much are you worth? Martin closed his eyes briefly. Claire looked at Vincent for a long moment. That is your first question. You lied to me for 4 years. I protected my identity. You let me think you had nothing. You decided that. I married a stranger. No. You married the woman from the bookstore. You simply never asked why she understood your contracts better than you did. Vincent pushed back from the table. His chair rolled several inches. He stood. Why would you do this? Because every man I met knew my name before he knew me. She spoke without raising her voice. They knew the properties, the trusts, the companies, and the people who answered my grandfather's calls. I wanted one person to see me before seeing all of that. Vincent spread his hands. I saw you. You saw someone you believed needed you. I loved you. Claire's expression shifted. Pain moved through it quickly, then disappeared. You loved being larger than me. That is not true. You chose my clothes. You corrected me in public. You laughed when I understood things you did not. You needed me grateful, quiet, and slightly ashamed. Vincent walked around the end of the table. We can fix this. Claire watched him approach. Fix what? All of it. His mind was moving faster now. Belanti, Iron Harbor, shipping access, construction supply, political influence, money large enough to erase debt and expand everything. He reached for her hand. Claire moved it away. Vincent lowered his voice. We were good once. We were. We can be again. Now that you know my balance sheet. His face tightened. That is unfair. No, it is late. Vincent turned toward Martin. Tell her the agreement can be withdrawn. Martin did not answer. Tell her. The agreement has not been entered by the court, Martin said carefully. Either party may refuse to proceed. Vincent looked relieved. Claire did not. She reached into the folder and removed another document. Martin recognized the letterhead before Vincent did. Phoenix Capital Partners. Claire placed it on the table. Vincent saw the first line. Notice of accelerated default. His relief vanished. What is this? Claire looked at Martin. Please read it. Vincent snatched the notice. Phoenix Capital had identified repeated violations of the $12 million loan agreement. Failure to provide accurate quarterly reports. Misuse of restricted funds. Undisclosed transfers to related companies. False statements concerning collateral. Obstruction of an authorized audit. The list continued. Vincent felt heat move beneath his collar. This is a threat. It is a notice, Claire said. I will call Phoenix. You already have. He stared at her. Claire rested one hand on the leather folder. Phoenix Capital is administered by the Belanti Trust. Martin removed his glasses. Vincent read the sentence again. The letters refused to settle into meaning. No, I approved the loan. You did not have $12 million. Claire said nothing. Vincent's voice rose. You were making coffee. I was working in a cafe. You lived in a rented apartment. I kept an apartment. You drove a 10-year-old car. I liked the car. Vincent stared at her as though every ordinary detail had become an accusation. You watched me beg lenders. I heard you order Lucas to take money from the charity account. That was not. You needed help before that night. I knew the company was failing. Claire's voice remained quiet. I approved enough money to protect payroll and finish the river project. I asked the committee for fair interest. I argued against taking voting control. I gave you room to repair the company without ever knowing your wife had saved it. Vincent's fingers tightened around the notice. You tested me. I trusted you. You hid behind a company and waited for me to fail. I waited for you to choose. I built Caruso Development. You built its image." His face hardened. "That company is mine. Then you should have treated it like something worth protecting." Martin opened a copy of the loan agreement. "Mr. Caruso, the default notice refers to several provisions that may allow Phoenix to seek a receiver." Vincent turned on him. May Martin scanned the marked pages. "The lender alleges that company records were withheld and that funds were moved after the audit request. If a court finds an immediate risk to creditors, it can appoint temporary management. They cannot take my company because my wife filed for divorce. The divorce is not the only trigger." Claire looked directly at Vincent. "It is the final one." Martin continued. "The agreement permits accelerated repayment following a material ownership dispute, divorce filing criminal inquiry, or verified fraud." Vincent laughed once. The sound had no humor in it. "Verified by whom? An independent accounting team," Claire said. "You had people inside my company." "Phoenix exercised its audit rights after Lucas delayed the records. You spied on me. We examined the collateral securing our money." "Our money?" Claire leaned forward slightly. "Do not confuse marriage with ownership, Vincent." The word struck him harder than the notice. He looked at the check, the ring, and the torn shape of the life he had expected to leave behind. Then he saw another page attached to the default letter. A filing stamp. Cook County Circuit Court. The petition had been submitted that morning. "You filed before this meeting." "Yes." "You planned all of this." "I prepared for what the evidence required. You said you wanted nothing. I want nothing from you." Claire pulled the cashier's check toward her. She tore it once. The paper separated with a soft sound. She placed the two pieces beside the ring. "I want back what you borrowed." Vincent looked at Martin. "Stop this." Martin's face had changed. The old condescension was gone. In its place was the careful fear of a man reviewing his own mistakes. "There is another issue. What issue my firm has represented an Iron Harbor subsidiary in separate matters?" Vincent stared. "You represent me. I represented Caruso Development and members of your family. The Belanti connection creates a conflict I should have identified before today. You did not know who she was. I know now." Martin began gathering his papers. Vincent stepped toward him. "You are not leaving. I cannot continue advising you. You have worked for my family for 20 years. Then you should understand how serious this is." Vincent's voice dropped. "Martin." The lawyer paused. For years, men had responded differently when Vincent used that tone. Employees became attentive. Contractors reconsidered their prices. Officials remembered delayed permits. Martin only looked tired. "You believed the room belonged to you," he said. "You never asked who owned the building." Vincent's phone began vibrating. Lucas Reed. He ignored it. The phone vibrated again, then a third time. Vincent answered. What noise flooded the line? Voices, doors closing, someone speaking through a loudspeaker. Lucas sounded breathless. "They are here." "Who? Phoenix auditors. Security. 2 attorneys. They have a court order." Vincent looked at Claire. She did not move. "What kind of order?" "Temporary control over the company accounts." "They are freezing transfers and copying the servers. Do not let them. I cannot stop them. You are the chief financial officer. Not anymore." Vincent turned toward the windows. His reflection appeared in the glass pale beneath the lights. "Move the operating cash." There was a pause. "Vince, transfer it to the Cayman Reserve. The accounts are locked. Use the vendor fund. That is what triggered this." Vincent lowered his voice. "What did you do? What you told me to do." Claire heard every word. Vincent turned away from her. "Destroy the local records." Martin stopped packing. Claire's face went still. Lucas did not answer. "Lucas, I am not doing that. You have done worse, not with federal agents in the lobby. Vincent froze. What agents? The charity account touched a project with federal grants. Someone reported the transfers. Vincent looked toward Claire. She held his gaze. On the phone, Lucas continued. They want statements. They took my laptop. They know about Savannah's apartment. Do not say another word. They know everything. The line went dead. Vincent lowered the phone. Martin closed his briefcase. I advise you not to contact any employees until you obtain criminal counsel. Criminal counsel. Claire stood. For the first time that afternoon, Vincent saw the full shape of her authority. She did not become taller. The room simply stopped forcing her to appear small. You moved money after receiving the audit request, she said. You just ordered your chief financial officer to destroy records in front of 2 attorneys. You drove him into this. No. I gave you a door. You chose the wall. Vincent stepped closer. What did you expect me to do? Bo, I expected you to tell the truth. I built everything from nothing. You built it with borrowed money, stolen money, and people who were too afraid to question you. His hand struck the table. The sound echoed. Martin moved toward the door. Claire did not flinch. Vincent saw that and hated her for it. You think your name makes you untouchable? No. She picked up her coat. It makes me responsible for what is done with it. His phone lit again. A banking notification. Corporate access suspended. Then another. Personal account under review. Then another. Board meeting concluded. Vincent Caruso removed as chief executive pending investigation. Vincent read the messages in silence. This is not legal. It is in the bylaws you signed, Claire said. I own the voting shares. You pledged them to Phoenix. He looked at Martin. The lawyer nodded once. Vincent's breathing became shallow. The penthouse. Collateral. The lake house. Collateral. My car. Owned by the company. He looked toward Claire as if she had reached into his body and removed something essential. You are taking my life. Claire put on her coat. No, Vincent. I am removing the credit that paid for it. She walked toward the door. He followed. Claire. She stopped but did not turn. You cannot leave me like this. Her hand rested on the brass handle. You left a long time ago. She opened the door. The assistants outside immediately stood. Claire stepped into the hallway. Martin remained behind long enough to look at Vincent. Do not move money. Do not call Lucas. Do not contact Savannah about any company property. Find an attorney who handles federal financial crimes. Vincent stared at him. Get out. Martin left. The door closed. Vincent stood alone in the conference room. Below him, Chicago continued moving. Taxis cut through the snow. Office lights flickered on. The river carried darkness between buildings that had never known his name. His phone vibrated again. Savannah. He answered. Where are you? She asked. The reservation is in 40 minutes. Vincent looked at the broken check beside Claire's wedding ring. I am coming. He ended the call before she could hear his voice shake. The lobby receptionist avoided his eyes as he crossed the marble floor. Outside wind drove snow along the curb. Vincent reached for the door of his black sports car. The handle did not move. He pressed the key again. Nothing. A flatbed truck waited behind the vehicle with amber lights turning through the storm. A man in a heavy blue jacket approached holding a clipboard. Vincent Caruso. Vincent looked at the truck, then at the papers, then back at the tower where Claire had disappeared. The driver extended the repossession order. Vincent did not take it. That is my car. The driver glanced at the document. Not anymore. Behind the glass doors, 2 employees watched. One raised a phone. Vincent looked at his own reflection in the dark window of the car. The suit remained perfect. The hair remained in place. The gold watch still shone beneath his cuff. Everything that had made him visible was still attached to his body. None of it could open the door. He stepped away as the truck driver lowered the chains. Snow landed on his shoulders. Vincent took out his phone and searched for another car. The company transport account rejected him. His personal card declined. He tried a second card, then a third. Each failure appeared in clean white letters. Across the city, Savannah waited beneath warm lights with champagne cooling beside her. Vincent turned up his collar and began walking. Vincent walked because every machine built to recognize him had stopped. The snow had turned to freezing rain by the time he crossed Michigan Avenue. Water slid beneath the collar of his coat and ran down his back. His shoes, handmade in Milan and never meant for more than carpet, struck the pavement with less confidence at every block. He passed the stores where employees once unlocked private rooms for him after closing. He passed the hotel where Savannah kept the apartment paid through one of Lucas Reed's shell companies. He passed Bellwether Books and coffee. The windows were dark. For a moment he saw Claire behind the glass as she had been 4 years earlier, her hair falling loose from its knot, one hand holding a towel against the coffee stain on his sleeve. "You can yell at me, or I can save the jacket." He kept walking. The memory felt insulting now. At the time, Vincent had believed the evening began because he chose to forgive her. He understood nothing about the choices she had already made. His phone vibrated. Savannah. He let it ring twice before answering. "I am close. You said that 20 minutes ago. There is traffic. Then tell the driver to use another street." Vincent looked at the wet sidewalk beneath his feet. "He is handling something." Savannah sighed. "I ordered the caviar. If you make me eat alone, I will consider it emotional abuse." The line went quiet. Vincent could hear music behind her. Glasses, laughter. The low, expensive murmur of people protected from weather and consequences. "I will be there," he said. He ended the call before she could ask another question. The restaurant stood behind tall black doors on Oak Street. Casa Valenti had no sign beyond a brass V above the entrance. Men who needed directions were not expected inside. Its owners had fed judges, athletes, musicians, bankers, and men whose names never appeared in newspapers. Vincent had proposed business deals in its private rooms. He had arranged political contributions over plates of veal. He had watched Savannah cross the dining room in a white dress the first night he understood that attention could feel like revenge against his own marriage. Tonight, a doorman named Paolo opened the outer door but did not step aside. Vincent paused. Snow melted along his eyebrows. "I have a reservation." Paolo looked toward the reception desk. The maitre d' Henri Moreau approached in a black suit. Henri had greeted Vincent for 6 years, with a slight bow and a phrase that suggested the restaurant had spent the entire day waiting for him. Tonight, Henri stopped several feet away. "Mr. Caruso. Savannah Price. Table 12. "Yes, Miss Price is seated." Vincent moved forward. Henri blocked his path. "There is a small matter concerning the reservation deposit." Vincent looked at him. "What matter?" The card on file was declined. "It is a banking error. We attempted the charge 3 times, then put it on my account." Henri's expression remained neutral. "We are unable to extend additional credit this evening." Vincent almost laughed. The sentence was too absurd to process. "You know who I am." Henri looked at his wet coat, his reddened face and the water collecting near his shoes. "I know your reservation. I spend more money here in a month than most customers spend in a year." "That may be true." "Then move." Henri did not. People near the bar had begun watching without appearing to watch. Vincent felt their attention slide across him. He reached for his wallet and removed a black card. "Run this one." Henri handed it to the receptionist. She returned less than a minute later. Her voice was quiet. Declined. Vincent gave her another card. The result was the same. He could feel something tightening behind his ribs. "It is temporary. I understand," Henry said. "No, you do not." Vincent reached beneath his cuff and removed his watch. Gold, black face, heavy enough to make men notice when he placed his wrist on a table. He held it toward Henri. "Keep this in the safe." Henri looked at the watch. "It is not our practice to accept personal items. It is worth $80,000. Several customers turned slightly. Vincent lowered his voice. "Take it. Let me sit down. I will settle everything tomorrow." Henri accepted the watch with 2 fingers. "I will have it examined." "You will do no such thing. It is required if the restaurant is expected to hold it as security." Vincent looked toward the dining room. Savannah sat beneath a chandelier with one shoulder turned toward him. Her red dress caught the light. A champagne glass rested near her hand. She had not seen him yet. "Fine," he said. Henri stepped aside. Table 12. Vincent entered the dining room as if he had won. Savannah looked up when he reached the table. Her smile disappeared. "What happened to you?" Vincent sat opposite her. "Nothing." "You are soaking wet." "The car had a problem." "Did you walk?" "No." She looked down at his shoes. The leather was wet and streaked with salt. "You look terrible." Vincent reached for the champagne bottle. His hand shook slightly. Savannah noticed. "What happened at the meeting?" "It is complicated." "Did she sign yes? So she is gone?" "Yes." Savannah smiled again. Finally, she lifted her glass. "To freedom." Vincent poured champagne but did not drink. On the white cloth between them sat oysters, caviar, and a plate of thinly sliced tuna. Savannah had already ordered without him. She placed a spoonful of caviar on a piece of toast. Did she cry? No. I thought she would. She knew. Savannah paused. Knew what Vincent looked around the restaurant. He lowered his voice. "She knew about us." Savannah shrugged. "Of course she did. Wives always know. She knew about the company." The spoon stopped near Savannah's mouth. "What about the company?" Vincent stared at the bubbles rising in his glass. Phoenix Capital called the loan. Savannah placed the toast back on the plate. Why Claire controls Phoenix. For a second, Savannah did not react. Then she laughed softly. "That does not make sense. Her name is not Claire Bennett." Savannah's eyes narrowed. "What is it, Elena Belanti?" The restaurant seemed quieter after he said it. Savannah knew the name. Her expression lost its boredom. "You married a Belanti. I married Claire." "No. You married a Belanti and never knew." Vincent felt the accusation in her voice. She hid it. Savannah leaned closer. "How much is she worth?" He looked at her. "That was my first question, too. What did she say?" "Nothing." Savannah sat back. A different kind of attention entered her face. Not concern. Calculation. "She can reverse this." "No. Of course she can. She owns the lender. She filed for a receiver, then make her withdraw it." Vincent laughed without humor. "You think I did not try?" Savannah lifted her glass. "Try harder. She does not want me. That has never stopped you before." The sentence exposed more than Savannah intended. Vincent looked at her. She drank. "My accounts are frozen," he said. Savannah did not move. "The board removed me." Her fingers tightened around the stem of the glass. They took the car. She stared at him. "How long I do not know. Hours. Days. I said I do not know." Savannah placed the glass down carefully. "What about the St. Bart's house we were renting it? You said you owned it. The company held the lease. And the jet chartered." She blinked. "The lake house collateral. The penthouse. also collateral. Her face became still. Vincent reached for her hand. She withdrew it before he could touch her. "This is temporary," he said. "I can rebuild." Savannah looked at his empty wrist. "Where is your watch? Henri is holding it." "Why?" "The reservation card had a problem." She leaned back. "So you came here without money." "I have money." "Where it is frozen." "That means you do not have it." Vincent lowered his voice. "Do not speak to me like that." Savannah looked at him for a long moment. Then she smiled. It was not the smile she used in photographs. It was smaller, colder, and far more honest. "You really believed I would sit here and watch you become poor?" Vincent stared at her. "We love each other." Savannah laughed. The sound was light, almost musical. It carried across the table with the same casual cruelty Vincent had used in Martin Shaw's conference room. "Do not do that," she said. "Do what turn a financial emergency into a romance." Vincent's face hardened. "I left my wife for you." "No. You cheated on your wife because you liked being admired. I bought you an apartment. You bought yourself a place to escape. I gave you everything. You gave me access." Her eyes moved over him. "The restaurants, the clubs, the car, the invitations, that was our relationship." Vincent reached across the table. "Savannah." She pulled her hand into her lap. "You loved being watched," she said. "I loved being seen beside you. Let us not insult each other by calling that love." He felt the dining room closing around him. "You said your father could arrange private financing. My father, the oil business." Savannah stared at him. Then she began laughing again. This time she covered her mouth. Vincent's voice dropped. "What is funny?" "My father does not own oil fields. You told me he made his money in oil. Essential oils." Vincent said nothing. "He sells them through a distribution network outside Gary. You said he had partners in Texas. He has regional managers in Indiana. You lied." Savannah lifted one shoulder. "You told me you owned a jet." "That is different." "Is it?" Vincent looked around. A couple at the next table had gone silent. He leaned closer. "Call him." Savannah picked up her napkin and touched it to her lips. "For what?" "A bridge loan. My father has a mortgage and a warehouse full of lavender oil." "You must know someone. I know people who know you. I need a few million for legal costs and operating cash." Savannah looked genuinely amused. "Do I look like a woman with operating cash? You have jewelry." Her expression changed. "The jewelry you gave me?" "Yes. I sold the ring." Vincent stopped breathing for a second. "What? The yellow diamond?" "I bought that 2 weeks ago." "I know." "Why would you sell it because Lucas called me this morning?" Vincent stared at her. "What did he say?" "He asked whether I still had company property in the apartment. He had no right to contact you." He sounded terrified. "I thought something was wrong. You sold my ring before the divorce meeting." "My ring. I paid for it. With money you apparently did not have." Vincent pushed his chair back slightly. "You knew. I suspected. And you said nothing." Savannah's voice remained calm. "I protected myself." The phrase sounded familiar. Claire had protected herself. Martin had protected himself. Lucas had protected himself. Now Savannah sat across from him with money from his ring and no intention of sharing it. Vincent realized that everyone had prepared for the moment he stopped being useful. Everyone except him. "You are not leaving," he said. Savannah glanced toward the entrance. "I was already planning to." His hand closed around the edge of the table. "Before tonight, you have been distracted for months. Angry. Secretive. It was becoming exhausting. My company was under pressure. That is exactly what I mean." She stood. The red dress fell smoothly around her. Vincent reached for her wrist. "Sit down." Savannah looked at his hand. "Let go. We need to talk. We just did." She pulled free. The movement knocked her champagne glass sideways. Liquid spread across the white cloth. For one impossible second, Vincent saw coffee staining his coat in a bookstore. Claire's hand. Claire's voice. "You can yell at me, or I can save the jacket." Savannah picked up her purse. "What am I supposed to do?" Vincent asked. She looked down at him. "About what, the bill?" Savannah gave a small smile. "That sounds like an ordinary person problem." She walked toward the exit. Vincent stood. "Savannah." Several people looked up. She did not stop. Henri met her near the entrance. Savannah leaned close and spoke loudly enough for nearby tables to hear. "The gentleman at table 12 is upset. I would check his payment before serving another course." Then she stepped through the door. A black sport utility vehicle waited outside. The rear door opened. Savannah entered without looking back. Vincent remained beside the table. The champagne had reached the edge of the cloth and begun dripping onto the floor. Henri approached with another man. "Mr. Caruso." Vincent sat again. "Put the dinner on my account. As I explained, we cannot. Take the watch." Henri placed a small velvet tray on the table. The watch rested inside. Vincent looked at it. "What is this? The piece is not authentic." His face became hot. "Be careful. Our specialist confirmed it. There is no specialist here. One of our partners collects watches." He examined the movement. Vincent glanced around. He could feel people listening. "It is custom. It is counterfeit." Henri spoke quietly, but the word reached every corner of Vincent's body. The watch had been purchased years earlier from a dealer in Hong Kong. Vincent had worn it into rooms where men with real fortunes noticed the logo and never asked questions. He had once told Claire it belonged to his grandfather. She had believed him. Or perhaps she had simply chosen not to expose him. Henri placed the check beside the watch. "You need to settle the balance." Vincent reached for his wallet. $46 in cash. The dinner cost more than $3,000. "I will pay tomorrow." Henri shook his head. "Then call the police." No one spoke. Vincent heard his own words and wished he could pull them back. Henri looked at the second man. The man stepped closer. Vincent stood. "Do not touch me. Please come with us. I am Vincent Caruso." Henri's expression did not change. "Tonight you are a guest who cannot pay." They escorted him through the dining room. No one laughed. That was worse. The black doors closed behind him. Freezing rain struck his face. Vincent turned and pounded one fist against the glass. "Henri." The doormen looked through him. Vincent struck the door again. "You know me?" Inside, the lights remained warm. A waiter cleared the champagne from table 12. Vincent walked away before anyone could call the police. He had nowhere to go. The penthouse would be secured. The company office belonged to the receiver. Savannah had left. Rose's house stood across the city, but the thought of knocking on that door made his stomach tighten. His mother would look at him and see the boy beneath the suit. He had spent his entire life ensuring that boy remained buried. A black armored vehicle idled beside the curb half a block ahead. Vincent recognized the polished body and tinted windows. The executive vehicle from Caruso Development. His vehicle. He moved toward it. Anger gave strength to his legs. He struck the rear window with his palm. "Open the door!" The vehicle did not move. He hit the glass again. "I know someone is in there." The rear window lowered. Claire sat inside. She wore a dark navy coat over a black dress. Her hair rested loose around her shoulders. A tablet lay in her lap. The interior light caught the Belanti ring on her right hand. Vincent had seen the ring before. He had assumed it was costume jewelry from her mother. You took my car. Claire looked at him through the rain. Iron Harbor purchased the vehicle contract from the receiver. That means you took it. What do you want, Vincent? He placed one hand on the door. Let me inside. No, I am freezing. Claire watched water run from his hair onto his collar. For several seconds, she said nothing. Then the lock clicked. Vincent opened the door and climbed into the warmth. He reached toward her. Claire raised one hand. Do not touch me. He stopped. The door closed behind him. Leather cedar and quiet surrounded them. Vincent sat at the edge of the seat, dripping onto the floor. The driver remained behind a privacy screen. Where are you going? He asked. Home. The penthouse. Claire looked at him. My home. Vincent wiped water from his face. You planned this humiliation. I did not send you to the restaurant. You knew Savannah would leave. I knew who Savannah was. You investigated her. I verified the woman receiving money from a company secured by my trust. She loved me. Claire's expression did not change. Then you should ask her for a ride. Vincent leaned back. His teeth had begun to chatter. This is what you wanted. You wanted to watch me lose everything. Claire picked up the tablet. She turned the screen toward him. A photograph appeared. Sophie stood beside a hospital bed holding the hand of a smaller child. Vincent looked away. Claire changed the image. Bank transfers, consulting invoices, casino payments, his authorization code. You moved money donated to children. It was temporary. You spent it at a casino. I intended to repay it. With what? The River Project. The project was losing money. Lucas gave me false numbers. You approved the transfers. He handled the accounts. Claire opened another document. His electronic signature appeared at the bottom. Vincent looked toward the dark window. Everyone moves money between accounts, not charity money. You do not understand how business works. Claire's voice became very quiet. My family survived a century of men saying that before they went to prison. Vincent looked at her. You think you are better than me because your grandfather had more soldiers? No. Your family built Iron Harbor with blood. Yes. The answer stopped him. Claire did not defend the Belanti history. She did not pretend the money had always been clean. My grandfather spent the last 30 years separating the company from what created it, she said. He testified against men who once ate at his table. He returned property. He paid settlements. He built rules because he knew what happens when power answers only to itself. She pointed at the screen. You knew the rules and treated them as obstacles. Vincent's voice broke. I was trying to survive. So was every employee whose retirement money you risked. I could have fixed it. You forged my signature. He looked at her. Claire enlarged the document. Her false name appeared beneath a transfer order. Claire Bennett Caruso. You did not even know my real name, she said, but you still believed you had the right to use it. Vincent had no answer. Rain moved across the windows. The driver turned onto a quieter street. Vincent lowered his voice. If I had been polite today, would you have stopped this? Claire looked at him. I had prepared a restructuring. He stared. You were going to save me again. I was going to protect the employees. What about me? If you admitted the fraud, resigned, and cooperated, Rebecca believed we could prevent a public collapse. You would still face consequences, but the company might survive without a receiver. You would have buried the evidence. No. Her answer came immediately. I would never hide what you did. I would have helped you tell the truth before investigators dragged it from you. Vincent remembered Claire sitting across the table, the check beneath her hand, the ring, her calm voice. He had laughed because she asked for nothing. You decided all of this because I insulted you. No, because I laughed. Claire looked at him with something close to grief. You stole before you laughed. You lied before you laughed. You betrayed me before you laughed. She turned off the tablet. The laugh only proved there was nothing left for me to protect. Vincent pressed both hands against his face. For several seconds he breathed through his fingers. Then he looked at her. "Why ask for nothing?" Claire rested the tablet in her lap. "Because nothing you owned was clean enough for me to want." "That is not true. The penthouse secured a fraudulent loan. The lake house was pledged twice. The vehicles belonged to the company. The accounts contained investor funds and charity money." She spoke without satisfaction. "I separated myself from every disputed asset before the investigation became public. I would not allow your lawyers to argue that I profited from your fraud. You trapped me. I removed myself. You knew Phoenix could take everything. I knew you had pledged everything." Vincent looked down at his wet hands. "I thought it was mine." Claire's eyes softened, but her voice did not. That was always the problem. The vehicle slowed. Vincent looked outside. They had stopped near an elevated train station. The sidewalks were nearly empty. Claire opened her purse and removed a transit card. She placed it in his hand. "There is enough credit to reach Bridgeport." He stared at the card. "My mother." "Yes. I cannot go there." "Why, she will ask questions." Claire looked toward the rain beyond the window. "Then answer them." Vincent held the card tightly. "Let me stay with you tonight." "No, I have nowhere else. You have a mother who waited years for you to remember her address. She will hate me." "No." Claire looked back at him. "That would be easier." Vincent felt tears rising and hated himself for them. "Did you ever love me?" The question remained between them. Claire's face changed. The controlled stillness broke just enough for him to see the woman who had once waited for him behind the bookstore counter. "I loved the man who laughed when I spilled coffee on his coat." Vincent swallowed. "He is still here." Claire studied him. "Then let him prove it when nobody is watching." The lock clicked. Vincent did not move. Claire opened the door from her side. Cold air entered the vehicle. He stepped out. Before closing the door, he turned back. "Claire, Elena," she said softly. He stared at her. It was not a correction meant to wound him. It was the first boundary she had ever required him to respect. "Elena," he repeated. She closed the door. The vehicle pulled away. Vincent stood beneath the train tracks with the transit card in one hand and the counterfeit watch in the other. His phone vibrated. A message from Lucas appeared. "They found the charity account. The district attorney wants statements tomorrow." Vincent read it twice. Then he looked at the watch. For years it had told him exactly what he wanted to believe. That he belonged in every room. That appearances could become truth if no one looked closely. He walked to a trash can and dropped it inside. Metal struck metal. The sound was smaller than he expected. A train arrived above him. Vincent climbed the stairs and boarded for Bridgeport. The train carried Vincent south through a city that no longer recognized him. Rain streaked the windows. Stations passed in flashes of white tile steel beams and tired faces. Men in work jackets stared at their phones. A woman held a sleeping child against her shoulder. Two teenagers laughed near the doors. No one looked twice at Vincent Caruso. His wet coat clung to his back. His shirt collar had collapsed. Water darkened the knees of his trousers. He sat beneath harsh fluorescent light with both hands wrapped around the transit card Claire had given him. "Elena." He repeated the name silently. It felt strange in his mind. He had shared a bed with her for 4 years. He knew how she took her coffee. He knew she opened windows during thunderstorms and folded the corners of pages even after he bought her expensive bookmarks. He knew she slept facing the door whenever he came home late. He had never known her name. The train reached Bridgeport after midnight. Vincent stepped onto the platform and followed the stairs down to the street. The neighborhood had changed since his childhood, but not enough to protect him from memory. The same brick buildings stood beneath the same narrow sky. Church windows glowed at the end of the block. Old men smoked under an awning outside a closed social club. The Caruso house waited halfway down the street. One yellow light burned above the kitchen sink. Vincent stopped at the gate. He had not entered the house in almost 3 years. The railing still leaned toward the sidewalk. The stone steps remained chipped near the bottom. Rosa's plastic saint watched from the window. He could see his own reflection in the dark glass. A man in a ruined suit. A son who had arrived only after every other door closed. Vincent climbed the steps. He raised his hand to knock, then lowered it. The door opened. Rosa stood beneath the porch light wearing a dark robe and slippers. She looked at his wet clothes. She looked at his empty wrist. Then she looked into his face. "I saw the news," she said. Vincent swallowed. "Ma." Rosa stepped aside. Not warmly, not coldly. She simply left enough room for him to enter. The kitchen smelled of coffee and old wood. Rosa placed a towel on the table. Vincent removed his coat and sat in the chair he had used as a boy. The wood creaked beneath him. Rosa filled a kettle. He watched her move around the kitchen without asking questions. That silence frightened him more than anger. "They took the company," he said. Rosa placed the kettle on the stove. "They said that on television. My accounts are frozen." She nodded. Claire filed for divorce. Rosa turned toward him. "Elena." Vincent stared. "You knew. She told me her name before she married you." The words entered him slowly. "You knew the entire time she trusted me, and you said nothing. It was not my truth to tell." Vincent stood. "So everyone knew except me?" "No." Rosa's voice sharpened. "Everyone who knew earned the right." He looked at her. She pointed toward the chair. "Sit." He obeyed before pride could stop him. Rosa poured hot water over coffee grounds and placed a cup in front of him. Vincent did not touch it. "She destroyed me." Rosa sat opposite him. "No. She called the loan. You stole money. She took my company. You pledged it. She let me believe she was poor. You decided poor meant beneath you." Vincent's jaw tightened. "You are taking her side." Rosa looked tired. "I am taking the side of what happened." He stared at the steam rising from the cup. For years he had told himself his mother did not understand business ambition or the world beyond Bridgeport. Now she was speaking with a clarity he could not escape. "She sent me here," he said. Rosa looked toward the window. "I know. She called you." "She called before your meeting. What did she say?" "That you might need a place to sleep." Vincent laughed once. The sound broke in his throat. She knew Savannah would leave. Rosa said nothing. She knew the cards would stop working. She knew they would take the car. She watched all of it. Rosa folded her hands. "Did she make you steal? No. Did she make you lie? No. Did she make you forget your mother?" Vincent looked away. Rosa stood. "The room upstairs is cold. The radiator sticks. Your old blankets are in the closet." He looked at her. "That is all." "What do you want?" "I do not know. That has always been your trouble." She walked toward the hallway. Vincent remained at the table. "Ma." Rosa stopped. "I am sorry." She did not turn. "Sorry is a door," she said. "You still have to walk through it." Then she went upstairs. Vincent slept in his childhood room. The walls had been painted, but the shape of the past remained. Small nail holes marked where baseball posters once hung. A crack ran from the window toward the ceiling. The radiator clicked through the night without producing much heat. He lay beneath 2 blankets and stared into darkness. At dawn, he woke to fists striking the front door. 3 federal agents stood on the porch. Rosa remained behind Vincent in the hallway. The agents carried a warrant. They searched the room, his coat, his phone, and the small bag of clothes Rosa had placed beside his bed. Vincent watched one agent remove the transit card from his pocket. "That belongs to my wife. he said. The agent looked at him. Your wife, Vincent, closed his eyes. My former wife. The agent returned the card. By noon, Vincent was seated in a government office with two attorneys he had never met. Martin Shaw did not come. No one from Caruso Development answered his calls. The attorney appointed to advise him was named Sarah Keating. She wore a navy suit and spoke without sympathy. The government has records from Phoenix Capital, the company servers your personal devices, and Mr. Reed. Vincent looked at her. Lucas is cooperating. He has retained separate counsel. He did everything I asked. Sarah opened a folder. That statement will not help you. Vincent leaned back. What are they offering? You are not in a position to discuss offers until we understand the charges. I need to know how much this costs. She looked at him for several seconds. Money is no longer the most expensive part of this. The investigation lasted 4 months. Vincent learned that collapse did not happen in one dramatic moment. It happened through rooms, windowless conference rooms, courtrooms where his name appeared beside words like fraud and conspiracy, government offices where strangers discussed his life in numbered exhibits. He sat for interviews that began in the morning and ended after dark. He signed documents acknowledging transfers he once considered too small to remember. He listened as prosecutors described every employee whose retirement account had been placed at risk. The hospital director testified about the missing charity money. Sophie's mother submitted a letter to the court. Vincent did not ask to read it. Sarah made him. The letter described children sleeping in temporary rooms because construction on the trauma wing had been delayed. It did not mention Vincent's name until the final paragraph. When it did, there was no anger, only disappointment. That was harder to endure. Lucas Reed accepted a cooperation agreement. Martin Shaw turned over files and testified that Vincent had attempted to destroy financial records. Savannah returned several items purchased through company accounts. She sold an interview to a gossip website, then disappeared from Chicago. The article included a photograph of Vincent leaving Casa Valenti in the rain. The headline called him the Paper King. Rosa bought the newspaper, folded it, and placed it beneath a leaking flower pot. She did not discuss it. Claire never appeared in court. Her attorneys did. Iron Harbor Holdings provided financial records, restored the charity funds, and financed completion of the hospital wing. The company made no public statement about the marriage. Vincent understood the discipline of that silence. Claire could have destroyed him in every newspaper in the country. She chose documents instead. The government offered a plea agreement. Vincent would plead guilty to financial misconduct, conspiracy to commit fraud, and misuse of charitable funds. He would cooperate against 2 contractors who had used bribes to secure city permits. In exchange, prosecutors would not seek prison if the judge accepted a strict restitution plan, 5 years of probation, and a permanent ban from managing investor money. Sarah placed the agreement before him. This is the best outcome available. Vincent looked at the pages. 5 years earlier, he would have called the offer an insult. 6 months earlier, he would have searched for someone weaker to blame. Now he thought of the children's hospital. He thought of employees gathered outside Caruso Development while investigators carried boxes from the building. He thought of Claire sitting across from him in the divorce room. I expected you to tell the truth. He signed. The judge accepted the plea. Caruso Development survived under new management, but Vincent's name was removed from every project. The river tower opened without him. A new sign stood beside the entrance, Harbor River Residential. Vincent saw a photograph online and stared at it for several minutes. The building remained. His name did not. He found work at a diner near the freight yards. The owner hired him because Rosa had once cared for his mother after surgery. Vincent wore a black polo shirt, dark trousers, and shoes that did not slip on grease. His name tag read Vince. On his first morning, the manager handed him a gray cloth and pointed toward the counter. Tables first. Restrooms after lunch. Vincent thought the man was joking. He was not. The work was harder than it appeared. Coffee burned his fingers. Plates became heavier after 6 hours. Customers complained about eggs, temperatures, prices, chairs, and things Vincent could not control. At first, every order felt like an insult. He heard commands where there were only requests. He saw disrespect in people who barely noticed him. Then the days began to repeat. He learned names. A truck driver named Raymond wanted coffee before sitting down. Mrs. Alvarez ordered toast without butter and left coins in exact rows. A nurse from the nearby clinic came in after night shifts and slept for 10 minutes before touching her food. None of them knew Vincent had once entered restaurants through private doors. None cared. They judged him only by whether he remembered the coffee. That simplicity unsettled him. Then it began to calm him. He worked mornings at the diner and evenings unloading supply trucks at a wholesale market. Every month, part of his wages went toward restitution. The amount was small compared with what he owed. He paid it anyway. Rosa allowed him to sleep in the upstairs room for 3 weeks. Then she told him to find his own place. Vincent stared at her across the kitchen table. "I thought you wanted me home. I want you honest. What does that have to do with rent? You have lived your whole life inside things other people paid for. I am your son. That is why I am not making it easy." He found a room above a laundromat 3 blocks from the diner. The ceiling leaked near the window. The pipes made noise whenever the downstairs machines started. His bed touched 2 walls. The first night he sat on the mattress and looked at everything he owned. 4 shirts, 2 pairs of trousers, 1 coat, a phone monitored by his probation officer, a transit card with $6 remaining. He placed the card on the small table beside the bed. He never asked Claire to refill it. Rosa did not forgive him quickly. She gave him tasks. The back steps needed repair. The kitchen ceiling needed paint. A cabinet door had hung crooked for 15 years. Vincent arrived every Sunday morning and worked until Rosa told him to stop. At first, he treated each task like a project. He bought measuring tools. He created lists. He tried to hire a neighbor to help. Rosa sent the neighbor home. "You will do it. I know how to manage people. That is not the same as knowing how to hold a hammer." The first cabinet door leaned worse after Vincent repaired it. Rosa looked at the result. Again. He removed it and started over. Weeks passed. He learned to sand wood, replace screws, seal cracks, and listen when someone with experience spoke. One afternoon, he found Rosa standing on a chair, reaching for a box above the refrigerator. He lifted it down. Inside were photographs Claire had left with her. Some came from the lake house attic. Vincent as a child beside Rosa, Anthony holding him at a street festival, Christmas mornings in rooms with cheap furniture and bright paper. Vincent closed the box. "Why did she keep these?" "You told the housekeeper to throw them away. They did not belong in the penthouse." Rosa looked at him. They did not match the furniture. Vincent felt shame move through him. "I did not want people to see how we lived." Rosa sat at the table. "You were never ashamed of the house." He waited. "You were ashamed that it remembered you before you learned how to lie." Vincent looked down at the photograph in his hand. Anthony was smiling. The man did not look drunk. He looked tired. "Did he really leave to protect us?" Rosa's face changed. "There were things I promised not to tell." "He is dead." "Yes." "How do you know?" She touched the edge of the photograph. "Claire told me." Vincent looked up. When, after she learned the truth? What truth? Rosa shook her head. "It is not mine to give." He wanted to demand the answer. Instead, he placed the photographs back in the box. "Did Claire ever ask about me?" Rosa took too long to respond. "She asked whether you were paying restitution. That is all. That is enough." Vincent carried the box into the living room and placed it on a shelf. He did not ask again. At the diner, winter became spring. One Thursday morning, a man in a cashmere coat entered with 2 other men. They occupied the largest booth and spoke loudly about property prices. Vincent recognized the type. He had once been the type. The man ordered eggs, then complained that they were cold before tasting them. A young waitress named Maya carried the plate back to the kitchen. She was 19 and saving money for nursing school. The cook prepared another order. When Maya returned, her hand slipped against the wet edge of the table. Coffee spilled across the man's cuff. The diner went silent. Vincent stood behind the counter holding a pot. The man rose. "This coat costs more than you make in a year." Maya's face went pale. "I am sorry. You people should not be allowed near customers." Vincent placed the coffee pot down. He crossed the room. The man looked at him. "Get your manager. I am the server for this section. Then clean this." Maya reached for a towel. Vincent took it from her. He looked at the man's sleeve. The stain was small. He remembered Claire behind the bookstore counter. He remembered the power he had felt when an entire room expected him to become angry. "You can yell at her," Vincent said, "or I can save the coat. You probably do not have time for both." The man stared. "What did you say?" Vincent folded the towel. "The coffee was an accident. The insult was not." "Do you know who I am?" The question struck Vincent with the force of recognition. He looked at the expensive coat, the watch, and the men waiting for permission to laugh. "Yes," Vincent said. "I do." The man demanded the manager. The manager apologized and gave him the meal without charge. After the customers left, Vincent was called into the office. "You almost lost this job," the manager said. "I know. You cannot challenge customers." "I know." "Do you regret it?" Vincent thought of Maya crying near the freezer. "No." The manager stared at him, then pointed toward the door. "Get back to work." Vincent returned to the counter. Maya stood beside the coffee machine. "Thank you." He picked up the pot. "Do not thank me. Bring towels before you carry 2 cups." She smiled. For the rest of the shift, Vincent felt something he had not felt in years. Not pride. Peace. Martin Shaw entered the diner 3 weeks later. He wore a dark trench coat and carried a leather case. His hair had gone almost completely white. Vincent saw him through the window and considered walking into the kitchen. Martin noticed him. There was no point pretending. Vincent approached the booth with a menu. "What can I bring you coffee?" Vincent poured it. Martin looked at the name tag. Vince. "That is what it says." Martin almost smiled. Vincent placed the pot down. "Why are you here?" Martin opened the leather case. "Claire asked me to deliver something. Elena." Martin nodded. "Elena." Vincent looked toward the kitchen. The manager was arguing with a supplier near the back door. Vincent sat opposite Martin. "You testified against me." "Yes. You were my attorney. I became a witness when you ordered destruction of evidence in my presence. You protected yourself." "I did." Martin did not offer excuses. Vincent respected him slightly more for that and hated himself for it. What did Elena send Martin? Removed a thick envelope sealed with the Belanti crest. Vincent did not touch it. "Money? No. A lawsuit? No." "Then say it." Martin pushed the envelope across the table. Vincent broke the seal. Inside was a property deed. He read the address. The Caruso house in Bridgeport. His mother's house. He looked at Martin. "This is impossible. The property was sold years ago after a default connected to your first development company." "I know." Vincent had used the house as collateral without fully explaining the papers to Rosa. When the company failed, another lender acquired the property. Rosa remained through a rental agreement Vincent never discussed with her. The shame of that decision had helped keep him away. Phoenix Capital purchased the debt, Martin said. The Belanti Trust cleared the taxes, repaired the title, and placed the property inside a residential trust. Vincent turned the page. Rosa Caruso had the legal right to live in the house for the rest of her life. After her death, Vincent could occupy it. He could not sell it. He could not transfer it. He could not use it as collateral. The house could never support another business loan. She bought it. Yes. Why, Martin pointed toward the envelope. There is a letter. Vincent unfolded the pages. The handwriting was Claire's. No. Elena's. Vincent. You spent most of your life trying to escape the boy who lived in that house. You believed money could erase him, and every time he returned, you punished someone else for reminding you he existed. I asked for one thing during our divorce: the family photographs from the lake house attic. You told the staff to throw them away because they made the Carusos look poor. I kept them because they were the last proof that you once belonged somewhere without needing to impress anyone. The house is protected now. Your mother can live there for the rest of her life. You may live there too, but you cannot sell it. You cannot borrow against it. You cannot turn it into another promise that someone else must pay. It is not an investment. It is a home. I did not do this because I want you back. I did it because Rosa should never lose her home for loving her son, and because a man cannot rebuild if he refuses to stand on honest ground. You once told me that nothing in a skyline is permanent. You were right. The people who wait for us are. Elena. Vincent read the letter again. His eyes burned. He folded it carefully. She gave me the house. Martin shook his head. She gave your mother security. Vincent looked down. And she gave you somewhere to return. Martin reached into the case once more. There is more. Vincent laughed softly. There is always more. Martin placed a black folder on the table. Phoenix Capital Partners was printed across the front. Vincent's chest tightened. I have paid every month. This is not about the restitution schedule. Martin opened the folder. Phoenix Capital was not created by the Belanti family. Vincent looked at him. It was incorporated 25 years ago by Anthony Caruso. The diner noise faded. Vincent heard a plate strike the kitchen counter. A truck shifted gears outside. Someone laughed near the register. The sounds seemed to come from another building. My father had no money. He did later. He disappeared. He entered federal witness protection. Vincent stared. Martin continued carefully. Anthony worked as an accountant for companies connected to several organized groups. He discovered that men inside the Caruso network were using construction unions to move illegal funds. Vincent's fingers tightened around the edge of the table. My uncles. Some of them. My father informed on his own family. He discovered that one group intended to place accounts in your name. You were 6 years old. Vincent stopped breathing. They wanted to use a child as the legal owner of shell companies. If investigators traced the money, your name would appear first. Why would he leave us to keep the men involved from believing Rosa knew where he was? Vincent looked toward the window. Rain had begun again, moving in thin lines across the glass. He let me think he abandoned me. He believed hatred would keep you from searching. My mother knew only that he left to protect you. She did not know his location. Vincent's voice became rough. And Phoenix. Years after entering protection, Anthony won a substantial lottery prize under his new identity. Vincent gave a broken laugh. My father won the lottery. He used most of it to establish Phoenix Capital. Why? For you. The answer hurt more than anything Martin had said. He could have come home. Coming home might have exposed you. He could have written. He did. Martin opened another section of the folder. There are letters, recordings, financial instructions. The trustees were not permitted to release them until certain conditions were met. What conditions? You could receive control at age 40 if you had built an honest life and remained free of criminal involvement. Vincent looked down. And if I did not, the trustees could intervene if you faced irreversible financial ruin. Vincent's thoughts moved backward. The emergency loan, the $12 million. The company saved days before payroll failed. You used my father's money. Phoenix used a combination of trust funds and Belanti capital. Elena knew. She learned the origin while reviewing the dormant trust records. When, before approving the loan, Vincent stood so quickly the table shook. She knew my father left me money. Martin remained seated. She knew Phoenix was connected to Anthony, and she said nothing. The trust instructions prohibited disclosure. She gave me my own money and pretended she saved me. Martin's expression hardened. She gave you access to money you had not earned under conditions designed to protect you. Vincent stared at him. You used the loan to expand too quickly. You violated the agreement. You stole from restricted accounts. You placed your inheritance, your employees, and your mother's home at risk. Martin tapped the folder. Elena did not steal your future. She stopped you from consuming it. Vincent sat again. His anger collapsed beneath the weight of the truth. What happened to the money? Much of it was used to satisfy creditors and preserve employee pensions, and the charity fully restored. Restitution, partly secured by the remaining Phoenix assets. Vincent closed his eyes. She paid my debt with my father's money. She administered the trust according to its purpose. What remains? Martin watched him. The answer depends on what you become. Vincent opened his eyes. Meaning, the remaining assets will stay protected until you complete probation, maintain restitution payments, and demonstrate financial responsibility. Then I get it. No. Martin's answer was immediate. Then the trustees review whether control should ever pass to you. Vincent almost protested. Then he looked at the diner counter, at the gray cloth resting beside the coffee machine, at the letter from Elena. 6 months earlier, he would have demanded the money. He would have called the trust his right. Now he was not certain he should ever touch it. Is my father alive? Martin's face softened. No. The word left the air empty. When? 2 years ago. Vincent looked down at the photographs inside the folder. Anthony older, thinner, standing beside a lake in another state. He knew about me. He followed your life through reports. What did he think? Martin hesitated. He was proud when you started the company. Vincent waited. He became concerned when your spending increased, and when I was charged, he was already gone. Vincent pressed his palms against his eyes. For years, he had built an identity from the belief that his father chose not to love him. That belief had become permission. Permission to reject weakness. Permission to abandon Rosa before she could remind him of Anthony. Permission to treat love as something that remained only while he was useful. He left a message, Martin said. Vincent lowered his hands. Where is it? The trust requires 1 full year of consistent restitution payments before release. Vincent stared at him. You came here to tell me my dead father left a message I cannot hear. I came here to tell you the condition. Break it. I cannot. You represent the trust. I deliver its decisions. Vincent looked at the folder. Old anger moved inside him, searching for a target. Martin, Elena, Anthony, the trustees, anyone who had placed another locked door in front of him. Then he thought of the cabinet in Rosa's kitchen. The first repair had failed because he believed knowing how to command someone was the same as knowing how to build. He thought of Claire's words outside the train station. Let him prove it when nobody is watching. Vincent closed the folder. Then I will earn the year. Martin studied him. There was no satisfaction in his face, only recognition. He stood and buttoned his coat. Your father wrote 1 sentence on the first page of the trust. Vincent looked up. What sentence? Martin lifted the leather case. He wrote that money should never rescue a man from the consequences required to save him. Then he walked out. The bell above the diner door rang once. Vincent remained in the booth. His shift had ended 20 minutes earlier, but the manager did not call him. The deed rested beneath Elena's letter. He looked around the diner. Metal tables, a cracked clock, a refrigerator humming near the kitchen. He had once believed a room like this could not contain an important moment. Now it held his father, his mother, his former wife, and every version of himself he had tried to bury. Vincent carried the documents to Bridgeport that evening. Rosa was making soup. He placed the deed on the kitchen table. She looked at it, then at him. "You knew," Elena told me after she purchased the house. "Why did you keep paying rent?" Rosa stirred the pot. "Because the trust required me to contribute what I could." Vincent laughed softly. Of course it did. He placed Anthony's photograph beside the deed. Rosa stopped stirring. Her hand trembled. He was alive for all those years. Yes. He never came back. No. Tears filled her eyes, but she did not allow them to fall. Vincent wanted to ask whether she forgave Anthony. Instead, he moved beside her and turned off the stove. Rosa sat. Vincent knelt near her chair. "I used the house." She looked down at him. "I signed papers I did not explain. I risked the only thing you had because I wanted people to believe I was already successful." Rosa's mouth tightened. "I know. I was ashamed of this place. I know. I was ashamed of you." The final word broke something inside him. Rosa closed her eyes. Vincent lowered his head. "I am sorry." This time the apology did not ask her to comfort him. It did not ask her to erase what happened. It remained on the floor between them. Rosa placed one hand on his hair. "You came back," she whispered, "only because I had nowhere else. You stayed when you found another room." Vincent looked up. Rosa touched his cheek. "That matters." Months passed. Vincent continued working. He paid restitution. He repaired the back steps. He completed the cabinet door. He helped Rosa sort the family photographs and wrote names on the backs of those she could no longer identify. On the first anniversary of his plea, a package arrived at the diner. Inside was a small digital recorder. There was no letter from Elena, only a note from the trust. Condition satisfied. Vincent took the recorder to the Bridgeport house. Rosa sat beside him in the living room. He pressed play. Static filled the room. Then Anthony Caruso spoke. His voice was older than Vincent remembered, but the rhythm was the same. "Vincent, if you are hearing this, then I am gone, and you have survived something I hoped money could prevent, but feared money might cause. I left because men intended to use your name before you were old enough to write it. I believed distance would protect you. I was right about the danger and wrong about the wound. A father can leave to save his son and still break him by leaving. I am sorry. I watched your life from far away. I saw the first building. I saw your wedding photograph. I saw the way you looked at your wife. She reminded me of your mother when we were young. Strong enough to remain gentle until gentleness became dangerous. Do not mistake inheritance for love. Money is only a tool. It can build shelter or hide a coward. I left the trust because I wanted you to have a choice I never had. I also gave the trustees power to stop you because love without limits can become another form of abandonment. You may hate me. You have that right. But do not build your life around the wound I gave you. A wound is not a throne. If there is anything left for you after the consequences, use it to repair more than your name. Become strong enough to remain kind." The recording ended. Rosa covered her mouth. Vincent sat without moving. Outside, children shouted on the sidewalk. A bus passed at the end of the street. The radiator clicked beneath the window. Vincent pressed play again. He listened until Anthony's voice no longer sounded like a ghost. That spring, the children's trauma wing opened. Vincent attended from the back of the crowd. He did not sit with donors. He did not speak. Sophie, now taller, cut the ribbon beside the hospital director. A plaque near the entrance listed the organizations that restored the missing funds. Iron Harbor Holdings appeared near the bottom. Vincent's name appeared nowhere. He stood beneath the trees and accepted that. Across the courtyard he saw Elena. She wore a pale coat and stood beside Samuel Bell. She looked toward him. For several seconds, neither moved. Vincent could have crossed the courtyard. He could have apologized again. He could have told her about Anthony's recording the house, the diner, and every payment he had made. Instead, he placed one hand over his heart. Then he lowered it. Elena understood. She gave a small nod. No promise, no invitation, only recognition. Vincent turned and walked toward the hospital entrance. A volunteer held the door for him. Inside, sunlight covered the new floors. Children's drawings lined the walls. Vincent stopped before one picture showing a black tower above 3 silver waves. Beneath it, in a child's handwriting, were the words, "A safe place when the storm comes." Vincent smiled. He continued down the hallway carrying a box of donated books from Bellwether Books and coffee. That evening, he returned to Bridgeport. Rosa sat at the kitchen table with 2 bowls of soup. The family albums were stacked beside her. Vincent removed his coat. "Soup is getting cold," she said. He sat. The plates were chipped. The radiator made too much noise. Rain tapped against the old windows. Nothing in the room was impressive. Everything in it was real. Vincent opened the first album. Anthony held him on his shoulders at a summer festival. On the back of the photograph, the faded handwriting read, "For my son. May he become strong enough to remain kind." Vincent placed the photograph between himself and Rosa. Then he reached for the bread. For the first time in his life, Vincent Caruso did not need the room to know his name. He only needed to be worthy of the people who still did.